If you're dealing with eczema and you feel like you've tried everything and nothing seems to work, I know exactly how you feel. I've lived it, and not just with my youngest son, but with their dad too. In today's episode, I'm walking you through the two very different approaches that help both of them fully recover. One through restoring gut health, and the other through a deeper viral and liver-based approach shared by the medical medium. And what a fascinating journey that was. We're going to talk about what eczema really is and why creams alone won't fix it, the root causes that many don't know about, and the exact steps I took to heal my son's eczema, plus what finally worked after 5 years of trial and error with their dad. If you've been stuck on steroid creams, frustrated by flare-ups, or just want answers that actually make sense, this episode is going to be a real eye-opener. It's not about managing symptoms anymore. It's about healing the body from the inside out, and I'm going to show you how. Hey there, and welcome back to Heal Your Gut, Heal Your Life. I'm Sharon Selby, health coach, fellow mum, and someone who's walked the eczema journey more than once. And I'm really glad you're here. If your child is struggling with eczema and it feels like nothing is working, I see you. I've been there. The sleepless nights, the endless scratching, the tears at bath time, and the guilt of reaching for another round of steroid creams. Even when your gut is screaming, there has to be a better way. It's exhausting and heartbreaking. I've lived it with my youngest son, Cooper, and again with their dad. But what I want to share today is what actually worked and how both of them fully recovered using two very different healing paths. And just to be clear, I didn't come up with these protocols myself. They're the result of years of trial and error, late night research, reading healing stories, attending practitioner trainings, and testing what actually works in real life. These aren't things you'll often hear about in your GP's office or even from your allergist or pediatrician, but they were game changers for us and for so many families I now support. These are the two approaches I keep coming back to because they consistently deliver results. Because while conventional treatments focus on calming the inflammation we see on the skin, the real healing starts when we address the inflammation happening on the inside. And that's when the skin finally gets a chance to recover. So if you've been trying the creams, medications, elimination diets, and even the supplements, but your child is still flaring, I hope this episode helps you connect the dots and opens up a clear new path forward for you. Let's get into it literally, because treating eczema, truly treating it, is an inside job. Before we dive deeper into the two healing paths I mentioned, let's take a quick look at what eczema actually is. Eczema, or atopic dermatitis, is an inflammatory skin condition. It can show up as dry, itchy, red, cracked, or even weepy skin. It mostly affects babies and kids, but also adults can get it too. Right now, about 1 in 4 children are affected, and the number is rising. Conventionally and medically, eczema is treated from the outside in. And that usually means steroid creams on the skin to calm flare-ups, antibiotics if the skin becomes infected, and antihistamines to help with the itching. But here's the thing, none of these actually heal eczema. They manage the symptoms without ever addressing the root cause. And because the inflammation inside the body hasn't been dealt with, it just keeps coming up on the surface. And that's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. Through my personal experience and over a decade mentoring families, I've learned that real lasting healing comes from the inside out. It's a completely opposite approach. You might already be familiar with my son Cooper's story, and if you want the full version of how he recovered, definitely go back and listen to episode 6, where I walk through it in detail along with how to do an elimination diet. But in short, the first healing path I'm sharing today is what I use to help Coops, and it all started with the gut. I focused on identifying and removing his food triggers, things like dairy, gluten, soy, and eggs for him, and as well as food chemicals like salicylates. For some people, it's amines. These were huge culprits in keeping his eczema active and flaring. But as we began removing these triggers, his skin started to calm. And that was the first turning point for us. But it didn't stop there. I actively worked on restoring his gut lining and rebuilding his microbiome using nutrient-dense meals like slow-cooked casseroles made with homemade broth, fermented foods, and every meal became like medicine. We added in targeted supplements and herbs to support the gut barrier and digestion, and I also worked on reducing his toxic load, switching from low-tox products and consciously removing unnecessary chemical exposures around the home. And the results were incredible. Not only did Cooper's eczema clear, but his food intolerances and even his allergies subsided. By 18 months old, he could eat anything without reacting. It was absolutely life-changing, literally. And while this approach worked beautifully for him and so many others, his dad's journey was a completely different story. This was a 5-year battle with eczema and psoriasis, and everything that worked for Cooper and so many others I've supported didn't work for him in the same way. But once we uncovered the true root cause and took a completely different approach to support his body, he had a breakthrough in just a couple of months. It was so powerful, I ended up sharing our story on socials and it went viral. After years of trying and feeling like nothing was truly working for my kid's dad, I found myself in that all too familiar place, late at night, on Google, desperate for answers. I remember one night really clearly. I was exhausted, but wired, feeling frustrated and defeated, and I hated feeling so helpless. After all, I was a health coach. I should have answers, but I didn't. And not knowing the way forward filled me with so much anxiety. That's when I stumbled across the medical medium on Instagram. His feed was filled with healing stories like eczema, psoriasis, autoimmune conditions, anxiety, fatigue, and more. And honestly, I was skeptical, really skeptical. I mean, medical medium? Where's the science? I like to think I'm a progressive thinker, but I still need the facts. But I couldn't ignore what I was seeing. Photos after photos and stories of real people getting real results. Then I saw a story that stopped me in my tracks. A young man named Andrew Klasnick. His before and after photos were just unbelievable. His honesty, his journey, it was heartbreaking yet triumphant. It was so relatable and completely miraculous. I wanted what he had. Seeing his story is what led us down this path, and I am so grateful to him and his courage. So like him, I ordered the Liver Rescue book, which is this one here, by Anthony William, aka the medical medium, that very night. And the cover alone hooked me. It said answers to eczema, psoriasis, diabetes, strep, acne, bloating, adrenal stress fatigue, fatty liver, all of the things. And I read it cover to cover. What I learned flipped everything I thought I knew about eczema on its head. Because unlike the mainstream view, that eczema is your body attacking itself or that you'll just have to manage it forever, this perspective actually made sense. According to medical medium, eczema isn't just a gut issue or a food sensitivity. It's driven by a virus in the liver, often Epstein-Barr or EBV for short, that feeds on toxic heavy metals like copper and mercury, leftover pesticide residues like DDT, and inflammatory foods. When the virus feeds from these things, it releases dermatoxins, a toxic waste, and those are what get pushed out through the skin. And that's what's causing the burning, itching, flaking, and oozing. Not a broken body, but a smart one, a body that's always and faithfully trying to protect you. Because when the liver is overloaded, it pushes those toxins out through the skin and far away as possible from your vital organs, where those toxins would cause far more damage. The skin, in a sense, becomes the sacrifice. And yes, the symptoms are awful, but the truth is the skin is a better casualty to receive those toxins than our precious organs like the heart, the brain, and the liver. And how amazing is that? It made so much sense to me that we started using the medical medium's healing protocols to support the liver and reduce the toxic load. And here's what we did, as shared by the medical medium. First, we drank freshly made celery juice every morning on an empty stomach to flush toxins, calm inflammation, and support digestion. This was followed by either the liver rescue smoothie or the heavy metal detox smoothie, both protocols by medical medium that are purposely designed with ingredients that bind to and remove heavy metals safely from the body. And we also did the 369 liver cleanse, a 9-day reset that gives the liver a deep clean without being harsh like traditional detoxes. And honestly, after 5 years of trying everything else, We finally saw progress. His skin started healing visibly, day by day. Within a month, he was so much better. And by 2 months, his skin looked amazing. I couldn't believe it. Just when we felt like giving up. And then it was our turn. Just like Andrew's story had stopped me in my tracks and given me hope, I knew we had to share our experience too, in case it helped just one more family get results like us. So we shared our before and after photos and our full story on social media, and it went viral. Even the medical medium team even reached out and shared our story. And suddenly, tens of thousands of people were seeing the transformation too. If you want to see the 60-second medical medium video, I've dropped the link in the show notes and the video description on YouTube. So what did I learn from this journey? Well, so many valuable lessons. Here's a few. If there's a symptom, there's a cause. I've always believed that. And if we can find the cause, the body can heal. But the key is not to give up or feel like you're failing if you don't see results straight away. Sometimes it just takes time. Or you need to try something different, and that's okay. I'll never forget the moment I heard the specialist say to my kid's dad as they handed over a prescription that this condition he had would never heal, that the body for some unknown reason was attacking itself, and that it's common for men his age to develop eczema and psoriasis, that there would be good days and bad days to come, and this was just something he'd have to live with forever. I was so shocked and outraged when I heard that. You don't say that to someone whose life is already so deeply affected. You don't take away their last bit of hope like that. And not only were they wrong, but a comment like that could send someone over the edge. It could make them give up entirely. So if anyone's ever said that to you, don't believe it. You are not stuck. Your body is not letting you down. There is always a path forward. Keep searching. Keep listening to your gut because your body is always trying to heal and you are so worth the effort. I also learned on this journey that there's no one size fits all when it comes to healing eczema or any other condition, and no effort is ever wasted. All those years I spent trying different protocols, they weren't failures. They were part of our recovery. I truly believe that if we hadn't already cleaned up our diet and reduced our toxic load, this final phase of healing wouldn't have happened as quickly or as easily. So here's where I've landed when it comes to eczema recovery and our 2 paths to healing. Gut health is essential. Removing inflammatory foods and triggers, starving out pathogens and microbes and viruses, that alone can be life-changing, and it's an easier path for kids and parents. Then you have the liver cleanse approach. This is the deeper work, supporting the liver, starving out the viral load, clearing out what's been accumulating for years by using food as medicine. It's a much more restrictive approach, but for chronic cases, it's very, very powerful. Sometimes you'll need one approach, sometimes both. But the good news is these approaches don't compete. They completely complement each other. Because the truth is, your body is always on your side. It's doing the best it can with what it has. And because the body is so resilient, when you give it the right tools, it knows exactly how to heal and recover. Now, one thing I have to speak up about before we wrap up, because most of us were never told this, is steroid creams. And no judgment here, they are really useful and we've used them. The relief when that rash calms down is amazing. It's real and it's helpful. And if your child or your partner or even you is in distress, I completely understand why you'd reach out for them. We did too. But here's the part most of us don't know. These creams were only ever meant for short-term use. On the packaging, it often says things like use for no more than 5 to 7 days or apply no more than twice per week. And yet, they're prescribed again and again and again for weeks, months, and sometimes even years. And yes, they suppress symptoms, but they also suppress the skin's immune response, which can make the skin more fragile, more reactive, and more dependent on the cream over time. I've seen kids wrapped daily in steroid antibiotic creams or following protocols like the Dr. Aaron method, which uses a compounded cream of diluted steroid, antibiotic, and moisturizer just to get through the day. And while this can bring temporary relief, what no one warns you about is what can happen when you try to stop. The skin can go into topical steroid withdrawal, also known as red skin syndrome, where the skin becomes red, raw, burning, and ultra-sensitive to almost everything. It's not just a flare, it's a withdrawal. Now, I'm not here to demonize steroid creams. They have a place. They can bring relief when things are severe, but they cannot be the only solution. If you're going to use them wisely, use them intelligently. Let them calm the fire while you work out what's fueling the flame. Because until you treat the root cause, and that's the internal inflammation inside the body, the skin will keep crying out for help. And living like that, on edge, always waiting for the next flare, is, in my experience, unbearable. So if there's one thing I hope you take away from today's episode, it's this. Eczema isn't just a skin condition. It's the body calling out for help. The creams, the wraps, the prescriptions, they can bring relief, and that's okay. Don't feel guilty for using them, but don't stop there. Because real healing happens when we look beneath the surface and address what's actually driving the inflammation. Whether it's calming gut issues, identifying food triggers, supporting the liver, or lowering a viral load, there is a path forward to getting the results you deserve. And if you're sitting there thinking, okay, this makes so much sense, but where do I even start? I've got you. I've created a 90-minute on-demand workshop that walks you through the exact first steps I wish I'd known when we began our own eczema healing journey. It's called Healing Eczema Naturally, and it's designed to give you clarity and confidence and to help you get started without the overwhelm. You can watch it right now at www.healeczemaworkshop.com or just click the link in the show notes or video description. I really hope today's episode gave you a more empowering way of thinking about eczema, one that starts from the inside out and puts the power back in your hands. If you've got any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments on YouTube or send me a DM on Instagram. I genuinely love hearing from you, and if I can point you in the right direction, I absolutely will. And if you've got any feedback on this episode or future topics you'd love me to cover, please let me know. I've created this podcast for you, to support you, to guide you, and to remind you that you are not alone and that you are super, super powerful. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time on Heal Your Gut, Heal Your Life. Thanks for joining me on Heal Your Gut, Heal Your Life. If you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you're ready to start healing your gut, grab my free gut health guide and recipe book at sharonmselby.com. See you next week.